There's a bit of a warm-up here as soon as you open the workbook. So part 1, Q2 review, and I may get lost in some of these because there's that much in it, so just bear with me. So we want to just look at it, make it nice and easy. What's your biggest win so far this year? That could be a project that you're proud of, a decision you finally made, you know, something you built, something you let go of, making a hire, coming on board to this, having the time to come here today. So we're talking about just this past quarter. So quarter 1's done, dusted. We're talking about Q2 here in the last 3 months. Some of us don't even look week by week. We're asking you to zoom out and look at the last quarter and just pick that. Your biggest win so far this year. Whatever comes to mind first, and then we're going to write down at the bottom, which is more important, is why does this matter to you? So why was that win important? Why did it carry any weight behind it? The biggest challenge so far this year, again, so the hardest part, again, is self-explanatory. Don't mean to explain that. But what has, you know, biggest challenge so far this year, and is that still a problem now? Did you conquer that problem, or is it still a challenge? And what would it mean to you or the business if you solved that problem in quarter 3? So we'll just take a couple of minutes there and work through that. Okay, so that was just kind of the warm-up. If you're still writing away, just write away. There's no workbook on this section here anyway, so I'm just going to talk for a bit. But I just want to kind of briefly touch on why we're doing that. So that was just your gut feel. So now we're going to get a bit more structured. Again, if you're not used to these events, that kind of goes easy and kind of it goes a bit deeper as time goes on. So we're going to get structured and we're going to get very, very honest. And this is the part that most people skip in business. They just kind of go through the motions. I'm sure there's some of you, even in the onboarding calls or even during the discovery calls when we're first meeting, and I ask those questions of, you know, whether that was in person or on Zoom or whatever. And it's like, you know, where are you quarter per quarter or month by month? Like, I've never even looked at it. You know, we just go through the motions day by day, week by week, and we're just kind of getting through it. And that's what happens if you don't stop the review. Like, we do this every 30 days inside the blueprint, but if you don't stop the review like this, then you just roll over into the next one, into the next one, into the next one. And that's why we sort of fall into that hamster wheel, head down, reacting, never looking up and asking yourself, you know, what did we actually achieve here? Did that actually work? What are we maintaining or what are we leaving behind? So again, like I said as well, there's nobody marking this. Nobody marking this. So you have to score yourself honestly, because if you don't, you're just kidding yourself. So don't be thinking of writing down answers of what good looks like or what you think you should be writing. Just write whatever comes to mind. It's not about hammering yourself either. So it's also not about the toxic positivity of how well everything's going. Let's be real. Let's try and challenge ourselves here. And let's try and, there's no point in leaving the room with everything's fantastic and rosy and there's nothing to improve and we walk out the door and nothing changes. Try to challenge yourself too. But also on the flip side of that, and the other side of the coin, we don't want to be absolutely hammering ourselves and being so hard on ourselves. You know, we are where we are. Everyone's in this room, which even if that alone is making a massive step or change to business and life moving forward, kind of sums it up pretty straightforward that you can't plan for a good Q3 or rest of the year or anything if you've got a dishonest or you're not really looking deep into Q2 of what's previously happened in order to make the changes. So if you won't look what happened squarely in the face, then you'll carry the same problems into the next project or the next year or the next quarter or whatever else. So it's one of the most valuable things you'll do all morning is that review, because we're trying to identify the fixes, the changes, and also what to maintain moving forward or improve on or do double down on. So we're going to look at what went well and why. So we kind of had it, that's a very zoomed out view of things. And again, don't fill them out until we've set the timer, okay? Otherwise you'll just be sitting there doing nothing. So first, the wins. We want 3 specific wins from quarter 2. And we don't want surface level here. That was kind of the last section. Not like, yes, it was a good month or what really went well inside the business. So did you increase your prices? And that's worked really well. Did you change how you price things or how you approached your pricing or the structure? You know, are you more organized with your time, with your team and business? More structured, more disciplined? So talk about the actual, you know, impact that it has had as well. Not just again, the surface level stuff like, yeah, it was great, and more money, more revenue, but why was there more money or more revenue? What was the actions that caused that or that had that effect in the business? You know, is it meetings with team? You know, think about different aspects in the business of what actually went well, maybe keeping up with team meetings. It could literally be anything. It could be checking in with me. It could be doing the business plan, going through the business plan, like things like that. It could literally be anything. Again, it's completely specific to you, but we need to talk about, you know, what actually worked and what went well in quarter 2. And again, we're talking about just the last quarter. So we'll try not to sum it up into like some overarching goal. We'll try and be very specific here as we can. And again, like we always do, we don't just say what went well, we need to understand why, what was behind the wins. So like we always say, the belief, that the behaviour, the decisions that you made that actually allowed that to happen. So again, like if you're going to say you had a great month on margin, you know, and the win was margin, what was behind it? You know, was it because you actually structured your price in a certain way? Was it because the projects are more organised? Was it because whatever, team members coming on board? So let's talk about specifically what was behind the wins, because we need to identify why it's going well, and what we need to, again, double down on moving forward. You know, what behaviour or decisions? So you could also talk about the behaviours of you. How did you show up differently in order to achieve those wins? Again, how did you think, act and behave towards the wins as well? And again, some of these conversations or some of these questions you've never even thought about before. And again, if you're completely brand new to it and you're here because the last quarter was awful, well, maybe think about what you want from the next quarter, what you want to be sitting writing the next time you're sitting here. Because again, we might as well try and get something written down there. But even at that, there may still be, even though if you're here to try and improve things or you've been struggling over the last quarter or maybe the last number of years, surely we could try and look for some good in something. And even if it is just, again, being here today, having the conversation with me, coming on board, then that's a big win in itself. So again, write down your 3 wins. What went well? Then we're going to look into why it went well. So revenue and why. And then we're going to look at what was behind these wins, what behaviour or decision was behind each of them. So again, we'll just take a few minutes and work our way through that one. All right, if you're still writing, just work away there, okay? I'm just going to talk for a bit anyway, so just there's no rush, there's no panic. So we're obviously going to flip that on its head now, and we're going to look at what didn't go well. So for some people, this will be more difficult. For some people, this will be the easier one that Ryan pointed out there, because he's brand new to it, and that's fine. For other guys who've been here for a while, everything is going well. But again, we're going to challenge that, and we're going to see what could go better. Okay, so unless everything's sitting, it's absolutely perfect. We're completely owner independent, running off into the sunset, and the company's just printing money. Then there's something to write down here. Unless you're one of those guys, but I don't know any of them in the room myself yet. So this can be the harder one, or it can be the easier one, and it's everything we just did, and it's going to be completely flipped on its head. Okay, and again, I'm going to encourage everybody, just if you're still writing on the last bit, work away, but don't flip on here, because we're only going to do these top 2 sections. We're going to do what didn't go to plan and why, and then the root cause. Okay, so it's exactly the same as before, but only flipped. Try not to just think of what didn't go well in the last couple of days, in terms of you had a bad day or a bad week or whatever else, or one specific small problem. Again, try and think a bit more generalized. Try and go a wee bit deeper. And again, I know this is a challenge for some people, but it could be far too many phone calls coming your way. You know, you're still getting dragged into the day-to-day, dragged into the tools when you're trying to get off, even though you've maybe had success for that for a while. So we're trying to identify the things that you're making an effort to improve, but they're not going to plan. And again, that's normal, that happens. And again, this is construction, so shit happens every single day. But it's how we tackle that and how we face those problems. So it could be something that you've missed in a project, it could be something you've missed in a variation or additional works or whatever you want to call them, change order. Different guys here from all over UK and Ireland, so we're all different languages in the contractual world, but it all means the same thing. It could be something, an issue with team that you've had to again jump in every time and rescue or save the day. It could be a pipeline issue. You know, pipeline isn't as healthy as you want it to be. So we're going to pick 3 of the top things, and then we're going to go deep into why. What was the root cause? Was it a system issue? Was it a behaviour issue from you? Or was it a decision that you avoided? So maybe it was making that hire, and you've been putting it off and putting it off. Maybe it was putting somebody in charge. Maybe it was putting a process in place so they could do what they need to do and you could step back. Could have been a conversation that you've avoided with somebody. And again, this can be uncomfortable, but that's exactly why we're doing it. Okay, so this is crucial. As much as looking at the good, we need to look at the bad. And again, we're not going to blame the market. We're not going to blame the labour force. We're not going to blame the economy, because we're going to talk about what we can control here. And again, if there's issues with, like I always say to everybody, labour, materials, the economy, whatever, everyone else has those same problems then, so it's a level playing field. So let's look at what was in your control, okay, and we're going to look into the reasons why. So not job didn't go well because somebody put the material prices up and it's not my problem. So look, we're going to look at things that you can actually control. So take a few minutes just to write those 2 first sections, and then we're going to look into carry forward and leave behind. But there's a wee bit I just want to do on that before we get to that stage. So you've got your wins there, and you've got what was behind them. You've got what fell short, and then the root cause of why it fell short. So now simply we're going to look at, based on those answers, we're going to look at what we're going to carry forward and what we're going to leave behind. We're going to be talking about leaving behind the habits, the doubts, not saying no, and again the flip side, saying yes too much, same thing, were the bad fit clients. So what silently cost you this quarter? So this is you consciously deciding what comes with you and what stays behind, what stops here that you're not carrying forward into Q3. And again, we're going to be planning Q3 at the end. But think of those, what went well, what didn't go well, those habits, those behaviours. And yeah, pretty much what are you going to carry forward and what are you going to leave behind? So the honest question, so we've done the structured review. Just keep writing away there, guys, okay? I'm just going to talk my way through this as you're writing. So we've done the structured review, and I want to go a wee bit deeper here. And again, like I said, that's what the workbook's going to do. I don't want you leaving today having just filled in boxes or ticking boxes, and they actually don't really mean anything to you. You know, some of these things should be a bit of a revelation or an uncomfortable thing to write. Even the good things could be uncomfortable. You know, recognizing something, giving yourself a pat on the back. I know there's a guy in here who is the happiest I've ever seen him, and he's found guilty of never, you know, giving himself credit. And it's great to see that now. That can even be some of the most uncomfortable moves you'll make, personally. Finally recognizing the good and what you're doing and the progress you're making. And again, that only happens when you stop and actually reflect and look back on it. But I want everyone to leave here actually shifting something. You know, I want everyone to leave here with something they can go away and take away and implement. I want something they can go away and actually think about or be proud of, or go ahead now and be really excited to go and work on. And it could maybe give you a wee bit of anxiety, the thought of it, you know, the challenge in front of you. But that's good, and that's what we will all work through together. So this is kind of the summary as on the whole quarter, okay? And there's going to be a question here about founder operator. So for anybody new who doesn't know what founder versus operator is, it's a training in here. But again, we've got guys who've literally come on in the last couple of days in this room. The founder versus operator. The founder is the business owner, okay? And the founder work, people often ask me, what is founder work? Founder work is working on the business. Again, what does that mean? That means making decisions, putting process in place, having the meetings with key people on the team, hiring, firing, you name it, you know, doing the work on the business plan there. That's all founder work, things that actually move the business forward. And I know a lot of people in here, they have that misconception that when they're not on the tools, they're not actually generating any money for the business or not having an impact on the business unless you're physically working. But, you know, and I know that can be a difficult thing, and it kind of seems quite obvious when I'm fit and I'm getting paid per hour. But again, it's not. It's counterproductive at times, especially when we're trying to achieve something bigger than just working for a wage. We're trying to build a business here. So the founder work is everything that feeds into that. And again, the founder work is the quiet work. It's the work that nobody's patting you in the back for. It's the work that you can't really look back on initially, and it's not really tangible. I know laying a floor, putting a roof on, fitting the boiler, you can look at that and go, fuck, I achieved something today. Happy days, that was great. But that, you know, the founder work, nobody's thanking you for it because it's for you. And it's for the business, and it's the stuff that nobody sees. And then the operator work. The operator is, again, exactly what it says in the tin. You operating in the business, you there doing what you need to do, working in with the lads, going through the motions every day, just getting shit done, just making things happen in terms of actually physically working in the business, getting stuck in the day-to-day, constantly answering phone calls, solving problems, firefighting. And again, for anybody new to this, we've explained this in detail at a lot of different events, and there's trainings and all on this. There is times, obviously, in the business where you need to wear both hats. It's like having two roles in the business. You need to take them on and change them around when it suits, okay? Because even sometimes something happens, like Dan today, guys go on holiday, you have to step back in the operator mode. Sometimes that happens, but only if it's on the short term. You know, as long as it's not a long-term thing or it's happening week on week or month on month, because you're getting pulled in all the time. That's something they really look at and think about. So we're going to ask the question here across the whole quarter. Were you running the business, or was the business running you? So was the tail wagging the dog? Founder or operator? That's the honest question. Okay, so were you working as the founder, or were you working as the operator? And there's a wee bit of work there where you could actually write down founder and write down the things that you'd actually done this month that were working towards that, and then operator, and maybe even list the things where you were in operator mode. So the operator mode's flat out, reactive, putting out fires, busy from dusk to dawn. We've all been there, but not actually building anything. It's just going through the motions, but not really making any progress. So most of you, if we're honest, especially guys that are new here, are in that operator mode. And again, it's okay, even initially, if we're only doing 90-10, but then we're building it up to 70-30, 60-40. So we're just going to keep working towards that. So again, it's not all bad. These are the things that have to happen. It's the same as the admin. It's all stuff that has to happen. but they're the lower value tasks. Okay, next one then is the wins, and I want you to look at them. The wins in your business, did you create them? Did you subconsciously go after these things and they happened? Or did they just happen almost subconsciously? Did you see them or did they just happen? So did you proactively go after things and you achieved them, or did they just happen by chance? And again, the reason why I'm asking this is because we could subconsciously go through the motions of going through the plan and achieving things, and things are winning and we're not even sure why they're winning, but things are just going well. I've had a couple of guys come to me and say, like, you know, I don't know whether it's just coincidence, but this, and this is happening. It's not coincidence, okay? When things are going well, it's not coincidence. Again, it's all through to actions, behaviours, and even if we're doing it subconsciously, we're not literally actively working through it, but we have that target in our minds, and that makes us behave, act, think differently, change our behaviours, then produce those wins. So I want you to get thinking about that. Think of the wins. Did you actively create them, or did they just seem to happen? And then the things that fell short, this is a big one. Did you see them coming? So the things that didn't go well, could you have planned around them essentially? Or did they come and slap you in the face? Like, did you uncover something on a project that you've missed completely and you completely oversight and you didn't see it? Or did you kind of know it was going to happen, but you didn't do anything about it, you kind of put off? So what I'm trying to gauge here, put in the layman's terms, is there stuff that you know in your business that needs to be fixed and that's going wrong that you could do something about and you're not? That you're burying your head in the sand or ignoring, even though it's screaming at you? So that's what we're trying to uncover here, stuff that you know that it's the inevitable is going to happen. That guy is, even it could be something with team. You know there's a guy that you should be getting rid of who's a bad apple or a bad egg, and he's toxic to the team or he's unreliable, and you're just keeping them on because you're afraid to have an awkward conversation, and then it blows up, something happens, and there's a problem, and it's blew up in your face, but you did see it coming, but you're going to blame him and everything else, but realistically, that's a you problem. So 2 questions there on the workbook. Were you running the business or was it running you, founder or operator? And the wins, did you create them or did they just seem to happen by chance? And then the things that fell short or the losses, how many did you see coming and how many did you avoid or did you not see coming, essentially? Right, okay, so like I promised, we're going to be getting quite specific here and getting deeper into the facts and figures. So you've given me the gut feel, we're going on sort of emotion here, now we're going to be looking at the metrics. So we've reviewed the quarter honestly, and now we're going to test all of that against something that doesn't lie, that you can't really hide from, that you can't have an opinion on. It is what it is, it's black and white, and that's the numbers. So before we dive in, again, they're called the 5 key metrics, and everybody has these in their portal that they're filling in on a monthly basis. But let me just recap for guys who are new in here what these 5 things actually are, because some of you are well on top of them, but some of you are at the very start, and again, that's fine. So the 5 key metrics are your monthly revenue, your gross profit margin, your lead conversion rate, average project value, and then your pipeline. So that's how much work you have got booked ahead. And here's why we focus on these 5 as a bare minimum. So these 5 figures or facts will give you a high level view of where the business is sitting at. Okay, so if you know these, at least these 5 metrics as a minimum, then you could say that you have quite a good handle on the business and where it's going and what you're doing and how it's going. And if you can keep on top of these things, then that'll pretty much, you'll be able to keep on top of the health of your business at a glance. And that's kind of why it's at a dashboard on the top of your portal. And then the goal for everybody in this room is to have these key metrics at all times, live, tracked, ongoing, maybe even somebody having them prepared for you and having them on that screen that you can see them all the time. And that's kind of the only involvement that you have. You're checking in on these 5 key metrics and then you're having conversations and making decisions based on those results. That's kind of, as a business owner, at the top of the level, that's kind of where we would expect everyone to be at. You know, just reviewing these 5 metrics and making decisions based on that, because team deal with the rest. Now again, we're not all striving for that, but that to me would be, again, full operator mode or full founder mode and at the top of your game. This is where, again, the feelings meet the facts. So you've been tracking these, should be anyway, since the start of April when we brought it on, when we created the portal. And it's your responsibility as a founder to know them, okay? This is what's important. It's not your accountant's job. It's not your bookkeeper. It's not your admin. It's your responsibility. You may have somebody who is producing these figures or tracking these figures, but it's up to you. It's your responsibility on where they're going and how they're going. And it's also your responsibility to know what they are and make it happen. So if you have somebody there, you need to train them and show them exactly how to do it. And again, everything is in there for you. But if you don't know your numbers, I've said this a million times, then you don't know your business. You're staring the business blind. And again, it's a conversation I have with nearly every single person that I've ever spoken to that's come into this program or hasn't come into this program. and they tell me how things are going and everything else, and then we get into the facts and figures, and they're like, yeah, it's going well, and we're making money, but when we talk about percentages, when we talk about margins, markups, no idea. Not tracked anywhere, not being looked at, with no facts, no figures in front of us, and most people will count or quote what the accountant said to them. I haven't got my year end here. That's year end shouldn't be a true reflection of where the business is anyway, let's be honest. And if that is the case, you need to come speak to me. But yeah, we shouldn't be relying on the accountant, because that should look worse than what it actually is. And again, you hear guys saying they don't pay themselves and everything else, but they're pulling out of the business left, right, and centre. So look, let's be honest, you cannot lie about the facts. If you know these 5 numbers or these 5 metrics month on month, then you can make decisions based on that. If you're not making decisions based on the metrics, then you're basing everything on feeling and emotion, and that's where decisions go wrong. You cannot make decisions based on what you think and feel, gut feel. That's not for business, okay? So that's not what we're here to do. Anything, like anyone who's used to working with me for a while, any opportunity, any decision that needs to be made, any problem, again, we'll look at it, and we'll look at the metrics, and even when it comes down to time. You could. These are the minimum 5, but we could run off with this and think about time spent on the business, different things outside of business. Again, the time profit control. There's so much data there that we could be using that manage these decisions, and that's also why when we're making decisions we're so uncertain, or we're getting, we have anxiety at the thought of making these decisions, because we're doing it off fucking thin air. We're doing it off complete feeling, not knowing whether it's actually right or wrong, because we're not looking at the numbers or looking at the metrics. So that's why these 5 key metrics exist. We're going to go all through all 5, and we're going to write down where they were. So some of you may know what your target was for last quarter. For quarter 2, we're going to actually see whether that actually happened or not. So some of you will know these numbers off the top of your head. Some of you won't have a clue, and that's fine. If you don't have a clue, write down what you think it is, and then when you leave here, you can go through the training and you can find out what exactly it was. So where are you at right now with your monthly revenue? But again, we're going to go through all these one by one, so don't fill them out yet. I'm going to actually explain each one, and then we'll give you the time at the end to go through it all together, because the food will be coming here, so I'll go through it. So metric 1 is monthly revenue, and that is, the monthly revenue is the total amount invoiced to clients in a given month. So it's not what has been paid into the bank, and there's a reason for that. It's what you've been invoiced, because what we're trying to figure out is what the business actually generated. So some of you may be on fortnightly, some of you may be 30 days, 60 days, some guys are even 90 days. But we want to see on this month or this quarter what the business actually generated in terms of what was invoiced out that month, because that was the work that actually took place within that quarter. Okay, so it's going to be looked at separately. So you absolutely need to be keeping an eye on what's being paid, obviously, owed when it's due, and your actual revenue stream and cash flow coming into the business. But when we're talking about the monthly revenue or the quarterly revenue, this should be quarterly, obviously. That's what we need to be checking. What invoices were generated due to the work that actually took place that month? And if you're one of these guys who's spending months and months down the line after the work's been done before you're invoicing because you forgot about it, then that's a whole other conversation. So look back across April, May, June, the last quarter. What did you actually invoice out each month? What was that figure? Add up the invoices issued, 6 invoices totaling 40 grand, 42 grand revenue. And again, we're always talking net. We're never looking at gross. We're never looking at plus VAT. We're only talking about the net revenue. So when you come to fill it out shortly, we're asking that question, where are you on revenue and what needs to change going into quarter 3? So metric 2 speaks for itself, gross profit margin. And gross profit margin is the one that catches most people out. Gross profit margin is what's been left after, from your revenue after you've paid everything out, overheads, all your direct debits, whatever, all your suppliers, everything. So that is what your gross profit margin is, but it's before tax, obviously, because we haven't got to that part yet. And this is where most construction business owners get it wrong. They price their jobs without ever looking at their overheads, and we're not going to get into that today. Everybody, that's bread and butter for most people in here now at this stage. But, not taking into account your overhead. So you think you're pricing a project and you're sticking a 30% markup on it, but markup does not equal margin, because out of that 30% you might have 25% margin. Some people have in here. Some people are leading to have 7%. But you need to take into account after everything, after you've been paid, after all the overheads are out, after everything is said and done, a 30% markup may only actually be a 10% margin. And that's why most people look at their business and say, where the fuck is the money? Where is that 30%? It's not there. And if you don't know what your gross profit margin is, and again, not markup, margin, so clear and absolute profit after everything is said and done, if you don't know that figure, you need to write that down. Okay, just don't know, no idea where it is. And then the answer to what needs to change in quarter 3 was, I need to get clear on what that is. If it's low, what needs to change? Whether it's revenue, average project value, conversion rate, everything we're going to get into here in a minute, what needs to change to meet that or to improve that, or if it is what needs to change and everything's going smashing, then nothing. You need to maintain it, okay, consistency. Lead conversion rate, okay, or just conversion rate, maybe not lead conversion rate, but we need to look at where are you at right now. So out of the projects or jobs that you price, how many are you winning? How many are converting into a live project? That's the question here. That's what lead conversion rate is. So out of 10 jobs and you won 5, that's 50% conversion rate. If you are above 60%, you're too cheap. That's just the facts. If you're below that, then it doesn't necessarily mean you're too expensive. So if you're not winning projects, price is not the first place you need to look. You need to look at your client relationship, who you're pricing against. You need to look at how you presented your quotation. Again, there's guys here from 5 million plus commercial to 150,000 domestic, so it's completely different to every one of you, but the principle's all the same. Either that's a relationship with a customer or client and how you presented yourself or the business, what you've got online there that backs up what you're saying. Again, commercially, who's that guy that is winning the work? What relationship does he have that you don't with these guys who are holding the purse strings? So again, just your price it's the last place to look. You have to look at everything else first and take all that away. If you're not winning work and your conversion rate's low, the last place you look is your price. Unless it's obvious and it's like you're 3 times the price of some people, then you go, well, there's something wrong here. Again, at first glance, if you're not far off, the last place to look is your actual price. So that's pretty straightforward. So where are you at right now with how many, your lead conversion rate, so how many projects you're pricing compared to what you're winning. If you're winning every job, you need to increase your prices immediately. Because even if you're in high demand and you're winning work and you're getting good margins, it doesn't matter. The fact that you're in high demand means you can continue to increase those prices. And that's a limiting belief some people really struggle with. I'm already getting 40% margin. Yeah, but there's guys in here who I know personally are getting upwards of 80%, 100% margins on projects. So it can happen. If you're in demand, that's telling you something. If you're winning every project, it means you're too cheap. Another thing to mention here on the lead conversion rate or your conversion rate of projects is, especially for the domestic guys, if you're not winning work or you're not converting or converting something from a quote into a project, you need to make sure that you're pre-qualifying the clients. You may have the wrong client in front of you as well. I want to make sure everyone's got this clear. I know some of you are well ahead. So what needs to change in quarter 3 in your lead conversion rate? What needs to happen? What do you need to look at? Maybe you don't know. Maybe you need to look at it deeper. Average project value. So this is an important one that a lot of people misunderstand. The average revenue per job over a given period, right? So this is the fastest lever that you can pull in your business that most people never do. And here's why it's so powerful, because if you increased the average project value or project size by 20%, with your margin protected, you could actually do fewer projects with the same or more profit coming in. So that's why it's good to look at your average job value. Okay, if it's low, you could actually have the same team bringing in more revenue at the same level of effort. So that's why the average job value is worth looking at. So if your average job value is low, if you increase that by 20, 30, 40% with the same team and the same margin locked in, you could actually be doing less but earning more. So that's why this is a very crucial metric to look at. Even if you never do anything with it, it's important to know what it is and that's an option to pull that lever if you need to, if it suits your business. Because most people think the only way to increase revenue is increase volume, but it's not. Raising your prices, going after bigger projects, but again, as long as your margin is protected, as long as you're set up to do that. But that is a major option for people that's overlooked. People think they just do more volume of what they're already doing, but there's a different way of doing that, because more volume means more team, more pressure, more fires to put out, if that's what's going on at the minute. You need to look at that figure very, very carefully. So again, fill it out, and then what needs to change in quarter 3? You need to increase it. You need to look at it at all. So we'll jot that down. And the last one then is pipeline. This is pretty straightforward for most people. Your pipeline is what you have booked in looking for. The number of weeks or months confirmed contracted work that you've got booked in ahead of you right now. Okay, so when I talk about, by the way, pipeline and what you've got booked in, I'm talking about work that you actually have deposits in for. You have contracts signed, because again, a lot of guys in this room know promises sometimes fall through, okay, and things get pushed back. So when we're talking about work 1, projects in place, calendar booked in, nobody should be in your calendar with either a deposit or a contract signed. Take it that that's not happening if that's not in place. And I know sometimes commercially that can be difficult. I've been on projects for 3 months before there was a contract signed, but Sometimes it happens, but only in an isolated incident. We need to protect ourselves as much as we can with emails, some sort of written verification to proceed in some way, shape, or form. But this single number in your business can rule everything. And mostly from a mental aspect. If you're sitting there right now with 6 months booked up or a year booked ahead, that does a lot for your mental state to think that if I done nothing for the rest of the year, we're all right. Everybody's sorted. So this is why this is one of the most crucial metrics to be looking at and ensuring you've got it in place. But now it needs to be filled with the right, again, high value clients, high margin work. So not just filling it with any old shit that's going to cause you absolute grief and break you by the end of the year. But having this locked in can do so much for your mental state. How many of you have been sitting week on week, or a job's been put back, or something has happened, and you're scrambling to find work? You know what that does to you mentally. That's the kind of thing that lies you awake at night, wondering how you're going to keep guys in a job. So this, again, one of these key metrics is absolutely crucial, and it's kind of obvious. It speaks for itself. So in that pipeline, then, where are you at right now? How many months or weeks? I know some of you are much smaller, sort of reactive stuff. But for you, that could be 2-3 months. Anybody domestically in here, I would be hope to have a minimum of 6 months. Anybody commercially, definitely, I would say 12 months. Okay, and again, depending on what size of contract that is. And what needs to change in Q3, you need to secure it, you need to be looking at it, deeper. And then the last section in these 5 metrics is from where you are to where you thought you were, what is the gap, or where you wanted to be? What is that gap? So for some of you who have done this last quarter, I want you to look at where you were last quarter, what you said you were going to do, compared to now where you actually are, and what is that gap, and why did it happen? What did the numbers actually tell you? And again, if you don't know the numbers of where you're currently at, pick a figure at the top of your head where you roughly think it is. Think to yourself, okay, I roughly do 5K a week, or you usually do 15K a month, or something like that. Kind of try to gauge it if you can. Try and think about these things just off the top of your head if you haven't got them tracked and recorded. Right, so lads and ladies, fill that out. Go through your 5 metrics as best you can. Don't rush it.